Welcome to Jargon, a podcast bringing clarity to commonly misunderstood business concepts. We're debunking and simplifying the buzzwords and ideas plaguing today's business world and offering a fresh perspective on these topics.
Hey, well, welcome. We got our podcast here. It's finally back. We haven't done it in a while. This is Bill here. I got Troy Cavazos with me, one of our consultants on our team. We're going to talk about AI today. Well, Troy, welcome.
Hey, Bill, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to have you. And I know, Troy, you've been doing a lot of work with our clients, helping them with their projects and helping them through things, and a lot with AI. And I think that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. Bill, I think there's a really big need. A lot of our clients are coming to us. They're getting pressure from executives, from board members, say we need to figure out this whole AI thing, right? So if you look all over the news, you see all these huge headlines about, AI taking over the world. There's a lot of software companies, technology companies that are promising these huge things. And we do see these things coming down, in the pipeline here pretty soon. And some of the capabilities today are helpful. But what I wanted to talk about today are some things that people could start doing, as soon as they finish listening to this.
Okay, so stuff they could do now. They don't have to go buy some software or go, do anything fancy or anything, go get approval for anything. This is something we're going to talk about stuff they can do today.
Yes, exactly. So things that they can start doing today. They don't need to spend a lot of money to invest in some big transformation project or anything like that. Things they can start doing today.
So you're talking about project managers that maybe are managing a ERP project or a big infrastructure migration to the cloud or any type of big transformational project. It could just be a process transformation project too, but anything where you're transforming the organization, maybe even a merger integration project that you're managing. So it could be any type of project.
Exactly. So we'd like to touch on, these three key areas that can be used by project managers to really create a lot of value in your business and really execute well in your organization.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. What's the first one, Troy?
The first one is completing and supporting project managers on their action items. We call this kind of being like a project assistant. So in terms of recording meetings, this can be really helpful for if you're balancing several initiatives or projects around the company, a recording and getting actionable next steps, tracking risks, issues, decisions, any changes that were recorded during that. Could really support a project manager in making sure that there's no gaps there.
So basically taking the transcript of a meeting and what people said, turning that transcript and maybe asking AI, summarize the key points from the meeting, summarize the action items from the meeting. But here's my question though, Troy. I think about action items. Sometimes they're not clear and discrete. How do you get through that? You're running a meeting and someone says, "Hey, Bob, I'm going to do this." And they're really just talking about getting lunch or something. How do I discern and make sure the AI is producing the right result?
Bill, that's always going to be something to be aware of where AI is right now. I would say, we've seen some people that get too over-reliant on the AI, right, to capture some of this stuff. So I think it's a two-pronged approach. First, it's really capturing the items when someone says they're going to do something by a certain day or just doing something in general, capturing that on your own, but then you really using the recording as a backup. That initial output, and the second kind of piece of this is the output that you get from that. It's using human intelligence to determine what was the intent of that statement, because AI doesn't have the full context of what is going to be happening before or after this meeting.
But you bring up a good point, though. You can't just rely on AI by itself, is what you're getting at. You've got to put some human thought into it, so you can't be dependent on it completely. But one thing I've seen you do in meetings, like sometimes you'll say, "Oh, this is an action item." You'll repeat back so that it's clearly an action item. So I think that's something to clarify, that something doesn't get lost in the AI translation, right?
Yes, and I think it sounds simple. It is, but it can deliver a lot of value really quickly. It's what we've seen with our clients. Things are happening right now. So that's the first thing, Bill. Second piece, large sets of data. What have you seen when it comes to doing large sets of data, having AI support that?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing comes to mind is I think about data conversion. Let's say it's a merger integration project, and I've got data from the company that we've acquired, or the company's acquired, and they've got data sitting there in this big file, and you look through it and it's like duplicate vendors, duplicate customers, misspelled, names not correct, things that just missing data. Is having AI go through that data for you and say, okay, what's missing, what's duplicate, help me summarize it. The other thing I've seen is here's our standard naming convention for a supply, how we're going to name a supplier. First letters in capital, we spell out incorporated, things like that. Asking AI to do that. But then also, where you start getting interesting is I've got related parties, and maybe some companies a subsidiary of the other. But it's one thing I've noticed with AI, you got to do one thing at a time. You can't just expect it all at once. So pick one and say, okay, tell me which companies possibly own other companies on this list. So then you're starting to clean up data.
Yeah, and I think with the large sets of data, is there any specific, whether you're using a Copilot or a Claude, is there really any, for these kinds of tasks, does it really matter which one you're using?
Well, you want to use one, like if I'm pulling in data that's like proprietary, or maybe it's supplier list or customer list, I don't want to put it on an open tool that's going to consume the information. So Copilot, if internal Copilot environment, it's a good option. Another one is if your company bought I'll call it ChatGPT corporate version, where the data is not being fed out. So you got to be careful. You don't want to put it on one of these I'll call it tools that you have at home, and all of a sudden you send your supplier list out, and then someone asks AI, what's so-and-so company's main suppliers for this? And all of a sudden something you shouldn't know. So you got to use it discreetly. And a lot of companies these days have like Copilot, and people have been kind of a little negative on Copilot because when I first came out with it, it wasn't very good, but it's gotten a lot better.
Right. And then some of the things we're talking about today with these, tasks, Copilot is good enough to do these things. And so that's what we're seeing, across our clients. So first we said action items, supporting that, being a project assistant. Second piece was helping and supporting large sets of data analysis, whether it's migration or conversions, naming conventions, things like that, parsing through that.
It could be mapping two companies' general ledger accounts to each other based upon the names. Tell us which one's mapped to another one. It could be a data reconciliation exercise where I've got data from one data set and I got data from the other data set. So for example, I got the output that came from the legacy ERP, and then I've got the output that came in for the data that I pulled in, lining them up and making sure they tie out, and using AI to tie it out and show you the differences. So that's another means of doing that too.
Sure, and that would create a lot of value for these large projects that we've discussed, right? So
it would make things faster and better, and really I don't need as many people waiting on someone to reconcile something or approve something, because we're not taking the human out of it. We're not saying have AI do it for you, but hey, if AI do the heavy lifting, and then you look at it and QA it, and sometimes in the situation where you're using an AI tool like Copilot or ChatGPT, asking the same question in a different way and see if you get a different result. So really honing in on the answer, because sometimes you might ask it a different way and it might give you a different result. So being very clear. I think a lot of people don't take the time to really be clear about, okay, when I say look for duplicates, this is what I mean by a duplicate. Like, this is not a duplicate. McDonald's Plumbing and McDonald's Restaurants are not duplicates because they're two different companies. So yeah, you got to kind of guide it a little bit.
And it's also been encouraging the last few years. I mean, that kind of back and forth, we've seen it really progress in the last couple of years, and we know it's going to continue to get even better and better. So hopefully we'll have less of those, interactions with it. So third piece, ways that AI can support a project manager today are using AI to support deliverable creation. So main pieces here, like we talked about earlier, inputs that can really support this deliverable creation are transcripts and templates. Bill, do you want to kind of talk about ways transcripts and templates can provide, giving it that path, giving it that roadmap, can really help deliver and execute on some of these tasks?
Yeah. So one of the leading practices our clients put in place is they have I'll call it pre-prescribed templates. Like their program management office or their enterprise program management office has certain templates for certain, I'll say, deliverables or work products. So for example, they might have a template for an organizational change management strategy, and it has certain pages in there that say, okay, who are my change agents? Who am I going to, what are their roles? What are their expectations? And kind of put a change management plan in place, and how am I going to affect change? How am I going to communicate? How am I going to train people? I might have a template for a change management strategy, for example. And so I might have a workshop with the team, and including maybe someone from the OCM team on a project. Have them all talk about ideas, brainstorm, talk through what do we think the change agents are going to be? What do we want them to do? How do we want people to act? What are our expectations? What's successful change look like? And taking that, and I don't want to jump off too much, but part of it, what we recommend to people, and you can do this today, is create a project within your AI environment. So create the project in there and say, okay, this is the project. Describe the project. And I do a lot of like voice recording type stuff. And I'll sit there and just like start talking, and I'll spend 20 minutes talking about something, and I'll take it, put it in a transcript, load it up into the project that describes the project, all the components of it. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the transcript from the change management meeting. I'm going to take the template and say, this is my expected output. And I'm going to say, okay, AI, take what you learned in that meeting, what you know about the project, and the template, take those three things and give me a recommended, what do I need to put in each section of the change management strategy? And so that gives you a good start.
Right. And I think, part of our guiding principles here is, the trusting but verifying, and also making sure not to take the person out of it. So you make sure that they don't have the full context of everything that, has happened up to this point on the project. So really making sure that your project managers are trained well in using it responsibly, and not putting your company's information or any of their deliverables at risk. And so, Bill, I think these three simple use cases today, a lot, people listening, some of them are definitely doing this today, and that's great. I think this can really answer, what can I do today, right? We feel like we're behind. We feel like, our competition's doing these huge AI transformation things. And I think some of these, these three easy steps are ways that you can get that culture and that culture of innovation and using it well into your company.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big thing. We get a lot of calls from companies going, hey, we got to do something with AI. Our competition's doing it. And sometimes that makes me, it does in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what's your business problem? And they can't tell me what their business problem is. They just got to do AI for the sake of AI. But part of what we're getting at here is start with the tools that you can access and you already have. You don't have to go buy new stuff, and start at a basic level and go, okay, we do a lot of projects, or we do a lot of bids, or we do a lot of things. Where's the repetitive tasks that require a lot of information? And I need somebody to help me summarize this. It's almost like years ago, executives all used to have secretaries who make their flight reservations for them. They do all this other stuff for them. They don't need them anymore, because I can go online and make a flight reservation fast, and I can tell somebody else to go do it. And so it's those things that make things easier. So think in terms of the day-to-day task type stuff. So if you think about everybody in the organizations doing that, there's value in that. So don't minimize the value just because you didn't go implement a fancy tool or do something out of the ordinary. Now, there's opportunities. We talk specifically here about project management, but there's opportunities in other areas of the organization too. So I think companies just need to be, I'll say, use a little discernment when they jump into the whole AI piece of it, and say, what can we use? What can we do today? And Troy, these three things are things any company can do like right now pretty easily. Right?
Agreed. I think if a company hopefully walks away from listening to this episode with some easy use cases, can set up some opportunities to walk through a demo, or walking through, training internally their project managers, and also being aware of externally, making sure that their contractors, anyone that could be supporting the organization through any type of project or transformation, is using this as well. Because if they're not, there's dollars at stake. So again, helping support as a project assistant, helping you support large sets of data through analysis, whether it's configurations or identifying any anomalies in your data. And lastly, helping for deliverable execution by using transcripts and templates. And these three key areas can help support your project manager today. And we hope that you take it and use it in your organization today.
Yeah, and if you made it this far into the podcast, we appreciate it. And we thank you for listening. And next time, we'll try to be more prompt with our podcasts, or more frequent with our podcast, I should say.